Yes, a virus can actually affect the price of the Tesla stock. And I'm not talking about the computer virus, and granted that might happen one day as well, but I'm talking about the actual coronavirus. It's been a concern worldwide now as it spread around the world from China. And believe it or not, it is possibility that Tesla stock will suffer. Because of that, we'll explain in just 1 second. But meanwhile, as you know, Tesla stock has been skyrocketing after an amazing Q4, which they absolutely crushed. But again, it is Q1 now. Historically, it's not been good for Tesla. It's not been good for electric cars. But now, with the threat of this virus, it can really cause some damage. I'm going to be joined here by Eli Burton of My Tesla Adventure in just a second for his weekly segment that we called Supercharged with Eli Burton. Of course, he is joined by many other contributors, including the CEO of Faraday Future, Carsten Breitfeld, the manufacturing guru, Sandy Munro, one of the biggest Tesla YouTubers, Rich Rebuilds, and many others. So I'm excited to have all of them contribute to this channel. They already have started, so check out all of their segments in the library of this video. And only more reasons to subscribe to this channel. And if you already have, click on the bell notification icon so you don't miss anything moving forward. All right, so we'll talk about, of course, the results, and there's a video on my channel about everything that happened, everything you need to know about the Q4 results for Tesla. All you really need to know that they really absolutely crushed it in the stock. Now it's past $600, and a lot of people are saying that, you know, in 2020 it can get to $1,000 a share, which will be insane, but at the same time I can totally see that. So before I bring Eli in to explain everything about the stock and what we can expect to happen to it in Q1, of course, a quick reminder that this video and this channel is sponsored by Climate Exchange. Check out their raffle, the Tesla raffle that is back. There's only a couple of weeks left, so if you haven't yet already bought the ticket, go ahead and use the link in the description of this video and buy one. Only 4,000 are going to be sold, and they only have a few left. If you win, you'll get to pick your own price, which is any configuration of any Tesla up to $195,000. And even if you don't, of course, you'll be donating to a great cause, which is the Climate Exchange. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring in Eli. Eli, explain to us what is the connection between the coronavirus and Tesla's stock price?
So this is something that's interesting. You don't usually think of the flu season as being a contributing factor to the stock price of a major corporation.
Not even a little.
No, not at all. But this is a little bit different because this involves the coronavirus in China. And basically what's going on right now, and it's actually such a big issue that they actually had to talk about this Elon actually talked about this on the earnings call. What's going on right now is the region of China in which the Tesla factory is in, businesses have been ordered to close shop for the moment to help stop the spread of this virus. So as a result, Tesla talked about on the earnings call that as a result of the factory closing, they don't know how long it will have to be for, but as a result of that, it will impact some of their profitability and some of their revenue this next quarter. However, on the upside is the impact will be a little bit more minimal because Tesla is so early into their production ramp that it's not like they're at anywhere close to reaching full capacity of cars they're pushing out anyway. So for example, it'd be a lot more disruptive if this happened a quarter from now when they're pushing out 3,000 cars a week versus right now when they're pushing out 1,000.
Now, they already said that they're at the rate of 150,000 a year right now, which is, you know, a significant amount. And I believe that their future products profits will heavily rely on their sales of the Model 3 and Model Y in China. So how damaging could it be, you know, closing shop for just 1 week? And also, this could last for a while. I mean, this could last for a month or even more, because obviously health is more important if we're talking about a real epidemic here.
Oh, 100%. And let's say even worst case, it was closed for a month, which would be a pretty long time for the virus to still be going and not have already ran its course through the population in that amount of time. But let's say even if it did, it will definitely impact Q1 sales pretty negatively. But I think we'll also ultimately see that made up pretty heavily in Q2 because, again, they have a large influx of orders that if they fall behind in Q1, they're just going to be further increasing production in Q2 and increasing the amount of shifts to meet the demand. So it's really going to be it could be a significant impact on Q1. But again, based on Tesla's own guidance, the impact will be a little bit more limited just based upon where they're at in the volume production of that factory.
Now we're already talking about, Q1 not probably going to be as amazing as Q4. As a matter of fact, it will probably underwhelming. I believe the CTO already mentioned that, or was it Elon, that one, they're obviously going to be continuing to invest into the Shanghai factory. They're continuing to invest in the Berlin gigafactory. And overall, the sales of electric cars are not very good in the first couple of months, February and even into
Overall,
March.
the sales of cars are not good in the first couple months.
Yeah,
Car
yeah,
sales fall in Q1.
yeah.
It's tax season. It's when people are figuring out what their tax liabilities are, and not when they're shelling out a large amount of money for luxury vehicles. Probably one of the biggest things that's going to be different from this year's Q1 versus 2019's or 2018's is in 2019 Q1, we exited 2018's Q4 with the end of the full valuation of the tax credit, the full $7,500. The difference between the $7,500 tax credit and then the $3,850 tax credit or $3,750 tax credit that you got the next month was pretty substantial.
Especially when it comes to a Model 3, right?
Right, on all the cars, but like Model 3, S, and X, that was still the last quarter, they all qualified for the full amount. So that really pulled a lot of sales into Q4 that would have otherwise happened. Some of them would have happened in Q1. This time, the tax credit was already almost gone. It was down to like $1,800. So the difference between getting the $1,800 credit and no credit between those 2 months really isn't near as substantial as it was last year, going from $7,500 to $37,000. So that's going to have a lot less of an impact as well. Yeah. But they're still going to have less sales because the Q1 is not a big selling quarter for vehicles globally.
Yeah, and I have to agree. I mean, I run a couple of relatively large, Tesla groups, and if the last, year I've heard, a lot of conversations, people, debating more about, whether or not they should get one before or after, there was a next stage of a phase out. Now I haven't heard a peep from anybody. It looks like, whatever was a leftover under $2,000 really wasn't making that big of a difference. The demand is very healthy around the world, not just obviously in the United States. So I don't think that's actually going to be a factor at all. Would you agree?
And honestly, it's really important that Tesla made this transition through the phase out of the tax credit and has actually increased their profitability as the tax credit has gone down. Because that was one of the big claims from like a lot of the haters, and people are like, oh, I like the idea of electric vehicles, but I don't like that it's subsidized. We'll ignore for the moment all the subsidies that go into oil and subsidize the cost of gas. But then, Tesla can't be profitable without the subsidies. The subsidies are now gone. And Tesla was very successful last quarter. I mean, they had over $100 million profit, but that's on top of paying back $500 million in debt. So their actual profitability, when you separate debt out of the equation, was actually even more. So that's a really big, another moment for the rest of the legacy auto manufacturers. Anybody making EVs has no excuse. This can be done profitably.
I absolutely agree. That was kind of my next point, because now that Tesla is going to be selling the cars without the tax incentive, though we should be fair that around the world there are still incentives in Canada, in Europe, and China, and so forth, and there are still incentives in the United States, obviously California, but Colorado, and now New Jersey at about $5,000. Good for New Jersey. Way to go there. So there are some incentives. I do take an issue with those who believe that the federal tax credit was ever or is now a subsidy. It's actually the same thing as if you're writing off your dependents, like your children or your mother-in-law and so forth. No different at all. There's no money going from me to another person. But again, let's leave it at that. So let's talk about the Wall Street, because obviously one thing is reason and logic and so forth. Another thing is Wall Street. Like, for example, I did not think that, in my eyes, Tesla, and correct me if I'm wrong, last year tripled the success of their company, right? But yet the stock went from $200 to over $600 now. So the Wall Street was way behind, I think, the rest of us who kind of know and understand this space, even though they should as well. Do you think they will be adjusting their expectations, not because it's a Q1, but once they realize that there are a lot of businesses are suffering from closed down shops and factories and so forth because of this virus scare, that they will adjust the expectations and maybe it won't affect the stock as much?
Oh, they're definitely going to be adjusting expectations. And again, it's part of why they're not giving their expectations at the beginning of the quarter. These aren't going to come till closer towards the end. And that's usually how these things go because they look at a lot of data to try and figure out what they think returns are going to be. But let's go back to the Tesla's valuation. Absolutely, did Tesla do nothing over the past year that actually made their value 3 times what it was at the start of the year? What happened was Wall Street analysts really don't pay all that close attention, obviously, to what's going on. And the short seller narrative really won the day. So we had this effect where the Tesla stock price was artificially compressed. And then when the good news happened, it was like a coiled spring. The stock had been held down artificially by news that really wasn't relevant, kind of smearing the company. And then as soon as they had a good quarter and then 2 good quarters, that uncoiled spring just came loose and resulted in this crazy $650 per share price that we have currently. And it's funny talking about the analyst ability to assess the company, which a lot of the times when you read these reports, it seems like they phone it in, which is kind of hilarious since these guys have 6-figure jobs who are supposed to be analyzing data and making informed predictions. Elon actually called them out a couple times during the earnings call, indicating that there's some retail investors out there and a number of retail investors out there that have much more a clue of what's going on with Tesla than any of the institutional ones do.
Well, I mean, that's fair enough. Listen, me, I don't really buy into any of this financial analyst stuff. It looks like they're wrong a lot, especially the most popular guy. What's his name? The guy with buttons and looks like he's a 5-year-old playing with buttons.
Jim Cramer.
Yes. I mean, he could not have been wrong about so many things, and the more wrong he is, the more popular his show becomes.
And it's funny with him and Tesla, he was so against Tesla all the way until he finally got into one because his wife made him test drive the car, and then immediately he becomes a shareholder and starts really becoming one of the biggest Tesla bulls out there.
Which is kind of
silly. He jumped in right at the right time.
Yeah, but it's kind of silly. You don't need to test the product to understand the profits and the future of the company, which is, again, this is why I don't play in stock market. Okay, now, let me ask you an interesting question, because a lot of people looked at our thumbnail today and said, whoa, what's happening? What kind of a computer software virus is infecting Tesla? We're not talking about the computer software virus, but we could be one day, right? If a hacker, probably Russian hacker once again, unfortunately, it's not helping my case at all. So I decides to hack a Tesla fleet, not just one or two, a Tesla fleet. I'm sorry, a fleet of any car manufacturer. It will probably be Tesla. So what are the chances of that? How hard is Tesla working, guarding that? Because, you can argue that some of their software, they're rolling it out and kind of testing it out in the world. Do you think they're paying more attention to the security rather than on, fun features or even self-driving features? Because it could get really bad. And if anything can affect the stock is virus affecting the entire Tesla fleet.
I think it's actually the opposite. I think if a hack does happen, it's definitely going to be on a non-Tesla vehicle, a legacy auto manufacturer first. And the reason being, Tesla is a technology company first. They are definitely software forward. And they have a better understanding of software in general, but also cybersecurity than any of these legacy manufacturers are going to jump into that game. So I actually think Tesla is the least likely to get hacked. Also, too, Tesla has a bounty program that if you can hack into a car or expose a vulnerability, they will pay you $1 million. So they have some of the best minds out there trying to crack into this thing because there's a huge incentive for them to do so. Also, the way they compartmentalize these systems, even if you were to able to get into some aspect of the software, they have this stuff compartmentalized that you're not going to be able to control the most important systems that are really critical to safety, and that's the self-driving components.
All right. I mean, it's an interesting theory. I don't necessarily agree. I believe that, the true hackers with some street cred, if they're going to hack something, it's going to be Tesla. And also, unlike the legacy manufacturers, this is the most connected car with the most, I would say, advanced software that
I'm
does
definitely
allow.
leaning into the future with that statement. I mean, when Legacy Auto actually starts getting into having their cars plugged in, because we're right at the moment, what are you going to hack? The radio? These legacy cars, their Alexa, you know what I mean? Like there isn't the depth of tech to hack, but I'm suggesting once it's there, I think legacy is actually going to be at higher risk than Tesla will be because Tesla is so far ahead and so much has in their DNA as a company being a software company.
Well, that I agree with. I mean, as I've mentioned a couple of times, and I'm not sure why people are not making a bigger deal out of this, but you know, Volkswagen has already produced thousands and thousands of ID3s that are just sitting on parking lots waiting for the software to be installed because they have not developed it yet fully because legacy manufacturers are just really not good at software. Where Tesla, as you probably, as you know, mentioned correctly, is, you know, you can even argue a software company first. So, all right. Well, so what are your predictions about Q1? What's going to happen, you know, with and without the coronavirus affecting the manufacturing in Shanghai?
I'm hopeful that we only lose a few weeks of production to the coronavirus. My guess is probably going to be 2 or 3. I think that's not just optimistically, but I think realistically that's what it'll be. But we'll find out. I mean, it's really important they get control of this because although the coronavirus is not near as deadly as H1N1 was and some of these other viruses we've had come out of China, it is still a lot more deadly than the regular flu. And we don't want this to spread around the world. But I think when it comes to actually performance this quarter, I have an expectation that they're going to be profitable. It's going to be a lot tighter. I think they may pay down less debt to retain profitability if it becomes close. So I think they're going to still make a profit this quarter. I think it's just going to be by a much slimmer margin.
Very interesting. I would not be that optimistic because I think they only made they only made a little over 100 million. Most of it, actually all of it, came from the green credit. So unless they start really collecting from that European deal that they had with the PSA, they're
going to keep selling these credits though, because these European companies are nowhere close to producing enough vehicles to meet the compliance thresholds. And again, don't remember too, they had 100 million in profit, but they also paid off $500 million in debt. So they can make some choices about how they do that debt payoff to not drain on their cash as much if they have a little bit less sales than they expected in a quarter.
All right. Well, you know, I'm rooting for them. Obviously, I'm just cautiously optimistic. I'll tell you that much. All right. Now, let's talk about your interesting project that you're involved in. You'll be traveling to Florida for that. Talk a little bit about that, and if those people who want to visit Florida for some reason, though this was a good reason, or live there, how can they find you, stalk you, and get your autograph?
Yes. So you guys can follow me on Instagram at MyTeslaVenture or Twitter at Eli Burton _. But I'm going to be, and so is Anwar Beck, my co-host on the Tesla Geek Show. So is Starman. So is a bunch of other YouTubers are going to be at the event in Miami called EVs and Tea. This is being hosted in partnership between MyV, Inside EVs, and Evanex. Evanex actually sponsors some of my projects, been a former sponsor of E4Electric. This is going to be a really fun event, can hold several thousand people. There's going to be hundreds and hundreds of Teslas there, and actually other EVs as well. I believe the Taycans actually, one of the Taycans are going to be there. So it's going to be a great EV event. Obviously, majority Tesla owners, Tesla community, because that's far and wide the majority of the EV industry today. But it's going to be a lot of fun. It's on Saturday, February 8th, and I look forward to meeting you guys in the audience out there. Please come up and say hello. And also Starman will be there at some point in the day, so you can meet him as well.
I am excited about it. I wish I could go. It is sponsored by Evanex, which is one of sponsors of this channel. And Inside EVs, obviously, Tom Mologny, one of the contributors, is part of that. He's not going to be there. They're sending someone else, but just as awesome. Well, probably not just as awesome because Tom is one of the most awesomest people I know, but close enough. All right, man. Well, listen, it's nice talking to you. Lots and lots of interesting news came out of this Q4 report. I'm sure we'll be talking about it throughout the next week, and most likely, you know, talk still about it on the show when you're back next week. So have a great week, and I will see you next Sunday.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, and just by the way, I have those of you who want to meet Starman, don't forget you can still pick up the Adventures of Starman, the Big Oil Strikes Back, or the original right here. The link is in the description of this video. He's also selling them in packs, signed, special editions, and all kinds of stuff. So definitely check that out. By the way, if you want to see some of the behind the scenes stuff that happens when I travel to some of the events like that, follow me on Instagram under E4Electric. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to this channel right now, would be the perfect time to click on that red button and of course the bell notification icon so you don't miss anything moving forward. All right, me and Eli are looking forward to your comments. Other than that, see you guys next time, and remember to stay charged.